This is Corey Jeffers, and this is step 1 in your Google Forms Ninja training. We're going to try to flip the first part of the training so that you guys can watch a video and hopefully gain what you need to so that we can get started on step number 2 and get a little deeper in the face-to-face setting. So to start off with, we need to create a Google form. We need to be able to get information back. That's the purpose in creating the Google form. So this is an example, is what you're looking at right now, is a summative assessment right here for figurative language. And there's a couple of things on here that everyone's going to have. We're all going to have the first and last name, the class name, period, name of the assessment, and the date. After that point, it's really up to the individual teacher, the department, how they want to create these particular assessments. So each one of them should articulate the learning targets. That's what we're going to try to do today. Look at a couple different types of questions that you could possibly choose. And then also how you might include some content such as pictures and or a video or something like that. Okay. To start off with, this particular assessment has some opportunities for students to give back qualitative data, like this number 8 here, for example, requires them to type a paragraph, which is very difficult to be automated. So for our first training, what we want you to come to class with is we'd like to have about a 10-question assessment that is quantitative. So it has multiple learning targets, but it's quantitative, meaning that it is either like check all that apply or multiple choice or something that can have a definite answer. So that's what we're hoping to start off with. Now you can do qualitative things with what we're going to be showing you, but it adds a whole new level of understanding, which I think we're all capable of getting to. It's just that it's a little easier if we start with quantitative, use our strengths, and move on to qualitative at a later time. Okay, so enough talk about this example. We're going to actually make one of these. So in order to make a Google form, we have to go over to Google Drive, go to Create, and it's one of the options underneath there. You can also do forms.google.com if you want to. So today then, we need to make a Google form, and we're going to make an example. And when Google Forms pops up here, it always asks you to retitle it. So we're going to go ahead and call this one Google Form Example, and we'll just say it's the assessment training then. There's also some neat little themes that are underneath here that just help make your Google form look a little spiffier. So I usually like this magazine theme, which is what this one is over here. But you can choose whatever theme you want, and you can change it at a later time. It just basically is the look of the Google form. So I'm going to go ahead and select magazine. I can see that magazine is changed up here in this area, and I'm almost ready to start creating. The other thing I want to make sure I do is automatically collect respondents' Wausau School District username. So go ahead and click on that one. The username is the email address. We need to make sure that we have that when we are automating data. So eventually our goal here is to make sure that we can communicate results back to students much faster and also keep track of those. So what will happen is that in this particular example that we're going to be doing in this training, we're going to have these reassessment forms actually are going to be sent back to students as a document. And it's going to be customized based on the results. So it's going to have the correct learning target identified for them, and it's also going to be differentiated, this data up here, based on how they answer the Google form. So their name, class, period, all those things actually have to be a part of the Google form. Alright, so let's make sure that we have that accurately completed. So to start off with in a Google form, you get the title. You also have the form description right here. You can leave that blank or you can add something. So for this one, I'll put something very generic rather in here. So please complete this geography assessment. I'm going to make a geography assessment in just a minute. And let's say, be certain to think about landforms. It'll make more sense in just a second. In this particular box here, though, you can put all kinds of different stuff. If you would like them to go to a different website, you can actually add a hyperlink into there and have students reference a different website and come back to this particular Google form if you'd like to do that. It's definitely a possibility. If you have a sheet of paper that you'd like them to be using while they're taking the assessment online, you could do that too and say make sure that you're using such and such packet or whatever it is that you'd like to have. Okay. First things first, though, we need to make sure that we get all this particular data in here, the name, class, period, and all that other kind of stuff. So we're going to start adding that right now. So the first one is we're going to say what is your first and last name? And instead of using a multiple choice question, we're going to go ahead and choose a text question. And we always want to make sure that that's a required question so that every student answers that and they don't get away with trying to turn it in without their name on it. So I'll push done right there. Next thing we're going to do is add a new item, and this new item is going to be the class name, which we have to have. So on this one, we'll go ahead and use choose from a list, which is like a drop-down menu, and we'll say what is your class name. In this case, my class name is going to be geography because that's what this assessment's based on. I'm going to make that a required question and go ahead and push done. The following thing that I'm going to do is that the next couple of questions that I have are also going to be drop-down menus. So what I'm going to do instead of making a new question is I'm going to go ahead and push duplicate right there. Has the question already, the type of question already listed for me, and then in this case I'm just going to say in which class period are you, and then we'll go ahead and change these results down here from geography. Instead we'll say maybe class period 2, 3, and then maybe class period 8 as well. Alright. So that looks pretty good. It's a required question already, and we'll go ahead and push done. What I'm going to do again then is I'm going to go ahead and push duplicate because this next question is very similar. This time it says, what is the name of this assessment? So I'm going to go ahead and fill that out. Alright, and then this time I'm going to get rid of some of these options because I want kids to have basically one name, and the name of this one, I'm just going to take the title of my assessment, copy and paste it in there to be a little bit more efficient with it. Alright, so let's go ahead and there we go. Copy and paste that in there and push done. And now I basically have the pretty much all the parts that I need for this Google form to be sent to students. Okay, so for this document to be sent. Except I am actually missing the dates. Let me go ahead and add the date too. Forgot to do that. So I'll go down to add item, and this time I'm going to add a date. And we'll just ask the question, what is the date today? And then we'll go ahead and we won't include the year. We'll just do the month and the day. Make sure that that's required and push done. And then when the student has a little drop down there. So if we want to see our Google form at any time, we can go push this View Live Form button up here, and this will allow us to see what it looks like to students. So I'll go ahead and click View Live Form. So now that's what it's starting to look like. It looks like it's getting pretty good. My drop-down menus are available for kids to select things and make it a little bit easier for them and much more consistent. I've got my month and day here that kids can select as well. Okay. So that's just basically the startup of the form. But now we got to get into some of the meat and some of the curriculum of this particular form. What are we going to be asking students? So I'm going to go to this Add Item area. I'm going to use the drop-down menu instead, and I'm going to go ahead to where it says Section Header. And I'm going to use a section header here to articulate my learning targets. So I'm going to say Learning Target number 1. And in this particular assessment, I'm going to have I can identify landforms from around the Earth. Hopefully that's okay with geography teachers, but you get the idea. If you want to add a description in here, you can certainly do that. If not, usually the header text is just fine. So I'll go ahead and push done. And that remains pretty large right there because it's kind of shows that it's a new section of your assessment in this case. So I'm going to add my first question up here, and let's go ahead and push Add Item. And I am going to add this first one as a checkboxes one. This is going to be a choose all that apply question. So I'm going to say question title number 1, which is which of the following are not landforms? And then checkboxes is my type of question here. I'm going to say in my help text here, choose all that apply to help kids know that there's more than one, or there might be more than one. And then I'm going to go ahead and in my options down here, let's give them a few options. Let's say mountains, let's say states, let's try a lake, and then a city. See if they know the difference between a landform and other things. Alright, so I'll make that a required question and push done. And I also put a number 1 right here because the ones that you are actually going to be assessing, the questions you're going to be assessing, like for example, your content, we're going to have numbers next to those. All this stuff up above here, which is just pretty much the same for everybody, this is just information we need in order to generate these automatic reassessment documents. So any of the questions that you actually want to assess, make sure that you put a number after it there. Okay? Alright, the next one we'll take a look at then. I'm going to go ahead and make another question here, except this one, I want to add some content here. I'd like to add a picture of a mountain range so I can ask some kids about the identification of things in it. So I'm going to go ahead and add an item, push the drop-down menu. This time I'm going to add an image. You can add all kinds of things. You can upload them, add them by URLs. You can take a picture with your Chromebook or your PC or whatever. Or you can go down to search, and for this case I'm just going to go search for ones that are I'm allowed to use. So I'm going to go ahead and search for mountain. I'll choose that first one there. I like that. And I'm going to ask some questions about this, but I'm going to label this mountain range. Mountain range photograph. You don't have to label it if you don't want to. Maybe that would be giving away the answer or something like that. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. I'm going to click on the picture because I don't like the size. It's a little too big. So I'm going to just drag the vertex in a little bit there on the right to make that a little smaller. And then I'll format this to the center. I like the way that looks, but there's no question based on that yet. So I still have to add that. So my question number 2 here is actually going to be to explain 3 landforms you see in the photograph above. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but I'm actually going to use this as a paragraph text because it's quite qualitative. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Explain 3 landforms you see in the photograph above. Great. And then I'm going to make this a required question, and then I'll push done right there. So that's my number 2 question, so it refers to that photograph. And then my last one's also going to refer to that photograph. So I'm going to go down here, except this time I'm going to do multiple choice. I'd like this one to be a quantitative question. So I'll go ahead and grab multiple choice in here. Title it number 3 because this is my number. Why is there snow only on the tops of the mountains? Add that as a question there, and then let's give them some options. Due to elevation. And you can push tab right here to go through the options a little bit faster if you don't want to click. Say due to water cycle. And then we'll say due to lake effect. Alright, and we'll go ahead and push that as a required question, and we'll go ahead and push done right there. So now I have a couple of questions. I have 2 of them that are quantitative. This 1 and 3 are both quantitative, and 2 is qualitative in this case. All right, I'll go ahead and view my live form, and it looks pretty good at this point in time. I got my learning target articulated at the top there, some help text underneath there to choose all that apply, my mountain range photograph, my questions for my students based on that, and it's looking pretty good at this point in time. So before you guys come in, what we're hoping that you can do is have 10 questions again. Okay, so 10 questions that are quantitative, things that choose either all that apply or multiple choice, or some of these kinds of questions where you just have a drop-down menu and you have to choose one that's actually correct. Those are the types of questions we're hoping that you can bring to the table. 10 questions would be great because it's pretty easy to deal with the percentages of that as we're talking about analyzing that data at a later time. Okay, we'll show you how to share these Google Forms then at the end here. The nice thing about it is once you actually get an assessment completed in here, which is pretty cool, the next person that comes along here literally just has to push file and make a copy, and that test or that assessment or whatever it is actually then created for the new person. So if it's one social studies teacher and another, the second social studies teacher can make a copy of this, and then he or she can have this this assessment so that they can get unique data from their own students. It's pretty nice little system, but it works a lot better if the assessments are common and departments are working together. All right, that's pretty much it for